By the end of this film, you will see why that secret deal collapsed, why the strategy survived, and how transportation became corporate leverage. The American oil business after the Civil War looked nothing like a stable modern industry. Refineries appeared quickly. Kerosene quality varied. Fires were common. Prices swung violently. Production expanded faster than dependable demand. A refiner could make a good product and still lose money because one cost sat between the refinery and the customer: transportation. Cleveland gave John D. Rockefeller access to rail lines and waterways, but geography alone did not create the oil empire. Standard Oil improved its refining process, used byproducts that other companies discarded, standardized quality, reinvested profits, and negotiated from scale. Those were real advantages. They made the company efficient. But efficiency explains why Standard was strong. It does not fully explain why independent refiners felt trapped. To see that, look at the railroad bill. Published freight rates appeared to be fixed prices. In practice, major shippers negotiated rebates. A railroad might charge the stated rate, then return part of it to a favored customer. For Standard Oil, a rebate meant a lower cost on every barrel. That alone could decide an industrial rivalry. A company paying less for transport could survive a price war that would destroy a smaller refiner. But the most explosive proposal went further. The South Improvement Company was created in 1871 and became public in early 1872. Its arrangements proposed preferential railroad rebates for favored refiners. They also proposed drawbacks, payments connected to oil shipped by competitors. In plain English, Standard could benefit not only when its own oil moved, but when a rival used the same railroad system. That is the first open loop in the story. The rebate made Standard cheaper. The drawback threatened to make every competitor shipment informative and profitable to the favored group. In a moment, we will examine why that second feature terrified the oil regions. First, notice what the contract changed. The contest was no longer refinery against refinery. It was refinery against the network. An independent operator could improve machinery, cut waste, and work longer hours. None of that changed the freight terms. If the railroad system gave a rival a lower net rate and better information, the independent refiner entered every market already behind. The information advantage mattered as much as the discount. Proposed shipping reports could reveal who was moving oil, where it was going, and how much volume a competitor was trying to place on the market. That meant the favored group could see pressure forming before a small refiner could see the response. The railroad was not merely carrying barrels, it could become an intelligence network. When the arrangement became public, producers and refiners revolted. Meetings spread through the oil regions. Shipments were withheld. Political pressure mounted. Pennsylvania revoked the South Improvement Company's charter before the plan could mature into a long-running operating system. The secret deal failed. The underlying idea did not. If you had owned a small refinery in 1872, which move would you have made first? Build a pipeline or sue the railroads? Put one phrase in the comments. The choice matters because Standard Oil's next move was to reduce its dependence on the very railroads that had given it leverage. Standard expanded into pipelines, tank cars, storage, terminals, docks, barrels, and distribution. This is where the story becomes larger than railroad rebates. A company that controls only refining earns one margin. A company that controls the route from crude oil to the final customer can capture several margins, reduce delays, collect information, and decide where to lower prices. Pipelines were especially important because they changed the bargaining relationship. A refiner dependent on a railroad negotiated from weakness. A company with its own transportation alternatives could threaten to move volume elsewhere, bypass a line, or connect directly to storage and terminals. The more of the route Standard controlled, the less any single outside supplier could interrupt its system. The network also made targeted action possible. A national company did not need to cut prices everywhere. It could lower prices in one city where a rival was vulnerable, absorb the loss there, and continue earning elsewhere. A local refiner usually had no second market to protect it. What looked like ordinary competition in one town could be supported by profits from an integrated national system. The federal case later described a broad pattern that included preferential rates and rebates, railroad discrimination, pipeline control, local price cutting, intelligence gathering, nominally independent companies, and territorial organization. Those were not one identical tactic. Together, they formed an architecture of power. Here is the second open loop. Even a powerful network still needed a legal structure capable of controlling many companies across state lines. The answer would turn an ordinary legal word into a national political accusation. By 1882, Standard Oil's owners placed stock associated with 40 corporations and other properties under 9 trustees. The separate companies could keep their names. Their facilities could remain scattered across states, but strategic control moved upward. To the public, the market could still look crowded. On paper, there were many companies. In control, there was one system. That is why the word trust changed meaning. It no longer referred only to a legal arrangement. It became shorthand for concentrated corporate power operating above the businesses ordinary people could see. And this structure created an information advantage. Standard could compare costs across regions, direct supply, coordinate prices, choose where to invest, and identify which competitor depended on which railroad, pipeline, or local market. The power was not located in one oil well. It was spread across the connections. If this document first view changes how you think about monopoly, use the like button as the signal for more investigations into the contracts, networks, and hidden systems behind famous companies. The system became increasingly visible because investigators and journalists placed the documents next to one another. Ida Tarbell's work traced acquisitions, railroad arrangements, testimony, and the experience of independent operators. Her reporting did not create the public conflict around Standard Oil, but it made the pattern legible to a national audience. That was a crucial act of translation. Corporate power often hides in fragments. A rate sheet in one archive, a trust agreement in another, testimony in a hearing, a local price war remembered by a small competitor. Tarbell arranged those fragments into a sequence ordinary readers could follow. Once the sequence was visible, the public could see that the question was not whether any single contract looked unusual. The question was what all the contracts allowed one organization to do together. A rebate by itself could be described as hard bargaining. A pipeline purchase could be described as expansion. A local price cut could be described as competition. A trust agreement could be described as administration. The meaning changed when the pieces were connected. In 1906, the federal government filed its case. In 1911, the Supreme Court concluded that the combination imposed an unreasonable restraint on interstate trade in petroleum and its products. The court ordered the unlawful combination dissolved so its force could no longer operate as one. But dissolution did not erase the refineries, pipelines, brands, expertise, or shares. It separated control. The pieces remain valuable because decades of integration had already built national infrastructure, recognized brands, technical knowledge, and access to markets. The law could divide the ownership structure faster than it could erase the economic advantages created by the old network. And that creates the final open loop. If the Standard Oil monopoly was broken apart, why did Rockefeller become even richer afterward? And how much of the original power survived inside the successor companies? That question is the next part of the story. The oil wells produced the product. Railroad rebates changed the cost. Pipelines and distribution controlled the route. The trust centralized the decisions. Together, those pieces made Standard Oil more than a company. They made it a system that every competitor had to navigate. If you want to understand how the 1911 breakup changed the names without immediately erasing the power, continue with the next video in Monopolies and Breakups. Because the court's decision did not end the Standard Oil story. It changed the form in which that power would survive.